fireballs. Oh, the smoke from fireballs. Do your players not want to play anything else but Dungeons & Dragons? Do you want to try out Shadowdark, use those rules more often? Do you want to try playing Daggerheart more often? Your players are just really into Dungeons & Dragons 5e. It's the one system they know, and they think all systems are just as hard to learn. Well, I'd like to go over the lore and the mechanics of Dungeons & Dragons 5e's magic system, so that way you can understand how it works canonically for the book and the rules that your players are used to, and that way you can be fully prepared to swap it out with, let's say, Shadowdark's magic system whenever you want, for however long you want it, while not changing the game and the main rules that your players are enjoying. I'm going to go over some of the basic mechanics and lore of D&D magic system as context for this contrasting, swappable system and idea. A lot of them I'm going to go over, you might already know. Some of the things you're going to go over, you might not even know. But the point is that by the end of this video, you can get your players to be playing 5e and something else at the exact same time. And it allows you to explore and play new systems while making your players happy as well. Let's talk some nerd shit. Hi, I'm C-Mike, and I love running games, crafting, and making new worlds. But I want to start with the basic context of how to play a spellcaster for anyone who's interested. Then we'll actually break down the lore behind magic in the Forgotten Realms, and how that carries over to other games like Shadowdark RPG, Daggerheart, and so on. Magic in D&D is fictional. You won't kill somebody for real, you won't send them to the actual ends of the universe. Each spell is a different magical ability that you can use to deal damage, support an ally, or change the environment. There's a list of spells for you organized by spell level, not your character level, but their power level, a lot of levels. There are wizard spells, cleric spells, warlock spells, ranger spells, paladin spells, druid spells, I think a few more. Sorcerer have its own spells list. But how do you use your spells? In some games, you roll a spell check or use mana points. In D&D, you have a few different options, actually, depending on which book you have. You're likely using spell slots. Each spell slot is a currency you spend to cast a spell. Kind of like bullets in a gun. Some bullets are bigger, some bullets are smaller. Yep, it's a good analogy. It's a resource you have to manage on your own. So a 5th level wizard can cast a 3rd level spell, but only a number of times per day equal to the number of 3rd level spell slots they have. Super simple, easy for first time players. Once your character completes a full rest though, typically the spell slots reset unless you have a really sick homebrew like me. That sounded like the least fun homebrew. You start with 0 level spells called cantrips. Higher level spells require higher level spell slots, while lower level spells can use higher level spell slots, but they typically use lower level spell slots. I feel like I'm saying slots and levels a lot. It's all good, which is where spell cards and apps are a better alternative than carrying a big book and flipping through a bunch of pages to find the spells and the spell effects that you're looking for. For example, Daggerheart uses spell cards and just cards in general, along with a character sheet, because cards, like my homemade Shadowdark cards, are very helpful and easy for people to organize their spells and abilities. Often when playing D&D, we have spell cards for different spellcasters. And it becomes so much easier at a certain point and certain level when you have so many spells, just having it organized in cards. When you cast a spell, you don't simply just mark off a spell slot like a checkbox. Well, you do that, but you also need to either roll to cast it in the form of a spell attack, or the target of your spell needs to roll a spell save against your spell. So now that we kind of covered the general mechanics of the game playing spells, which there are millions and millions of videos out there that already do that, let's diverge and focus on the thing that's important for this video. Does the lore actually impact the game? But mostly, will it help you wrap your head around spell casting and how the game is intended for it to function? And in that case, does it help people's homebrew worlds make more sense? There are 8 categories of spells in D&D. Divination, abjuration, enchantment, necromancy, illusion, conjuration, evocation, and transmutation. In the latest D&D version, these categories don't really matter as much to players. Before Legacy 5e, they were super important for players, especially wizards. Now they're just for DMs. Magic in D&D's official lore comes into 2 flavors. arcane, and divine. Is it just 2? Yeah, with arcane magic being connected to wizards, bards, sorcerers, and warlocks. Arcane magic users use what's called the weaves. Wizards study the collected spells and even create their own spells. Bards master music, poetry, and storytelling to bend the weaves around others. Sorcerers have a deep, innate connection to the weave, and sometimes a raw, magical connection to the magic beyond the weaves. We'll get into that. Warlocks, surprisingly, trade their freedom for powerful arcane access. Weaves are like refined fabrics of raw magic, magic that previously would be too dangerous for mortals to use. Weaves both allow mortals like wizards to utilize arcane magic, but also protect them from raw magic. A barrier and a gate in one. A lot of the flavor for the sorcerer, especially the wild magic sorcerer, comes from raw arcane magic, beyond the weaves. There is a raw form that is distilled, refined, so it can be used practically. That is the weaves. There are actually times where the weaves can be damaged as well. And this is where it gets really fun. If you come upon a place where the weaves are damaged, you can find yourself in battles where everyone can be rolling on the wild magic table every turn, every round, not just the sorcerer. Wild magic zones, places where the weaves are damaged, any spell can backfire, increase or decrease in power, or even target the wrong person. You're kind of giving everyone the wild magic surge table all at once. And if you understand that the lore of how D&D spell slots and classes and their magic work, this is easy to justify and explain in your setting. There's also something called magical dead zones. Weave is no longer present. Imagine a place in Star Wars where the Force no longer is around. In places like this, spells and magical items don't work. Your +3 sword? No good. The weaves that make up the spells or the magical gear are drained by the vacuum that is a lack of magic, where the weaves have been torn and destroyed. This is how dispel magic and the eyes of beholders actually work. So imagine implementing that into your setting if you're using 5e logic for casters and spells and classes. How do the weaves get damaged? How do the weaves die? This is all coming from the lore. None of this is actually in the new books. I've read them. They're not in there. I think it's cool, but what about divine magic? Divine magic is a gift to the faithful by powerful deities and spirits. The deities plant the spells into the minds and souls of the faithful follower. They aren't really learned or created like arcane users. They are miracles given through prayer. This is why druids and clerics had to choose the new spells every day in 5e. It was based on prayer. Even though many DMs wouldn't help their players pick useful spells for the day and instead make these choices less tactical or valuable, honestly. She's like, well, pick your spell. Well, what am I picking my spell for? What do I sense is coming up? So clerics are gifted it to them, but paladins, holy knights, they are driven by oath. But that is still divine magic. The divine act is to the oath, not to a deity. How do I know that works? Because rangers and druids. They are also divine spellcasters. Druids and rangers don't get their spells directly from a specific deity. They instead get it through the faith and connection to nature itself. So therefore you can argue that paladins get divine magic through their connection and faith in the oath. But here's a surprise for some D&D players. D&D's official variant for running spells is called spell points, replacing spell slots entirely. The spell points system makes casting even more creative. Instead of just casting 2 fireballs at 5th level, you can actually use up all your spell points in a single moment to cast 5... Oh, the smoke from fireballs. You can cast 5 fireballs per day. So if you don't want to play with spell slots, you can try spell points. This actually shows us that there are no one true way to play D&D, but instead the story behind the core rules and why they work the way they do in the official setting can actually help world builders know how magic works by default. So as a world builder and as a dungeon master, you can either lean into it exactly how it is, or you know exactly how to change it to fit your setting and your magic system. And there lies the beautiful thing about Dungeons & Dragons. You can take another game's faster, simpler, and more exciting magic system and swap it out entirely. Like For example, the 4-time award-winning Dungeons & Dragons rule light game, Shadowdark RPG. And instead of using something like spell points, which adds more accounting and resource management for players, it actually goes the opposite direction and makes it far easier and faster to use for players, especially if you make spell cards. I should really put these up for people to download. So now that we understand all the magic for D&D, you can now literally and perfectly pull D&D magic out and put in Shadowdark's magic and get rid of spell slots and spell points entirely. You can get rid of spell saves, spell attacks, and you just use the spellcasting check system from Shadowdark RPG. And if you think that's going to change your adventure, maybe utilize damaged weaves or dead magical zones as a reason to change the magical system on your players. In this video, I break down how my favorite magic system from Shadowdark is dramatically superior to D&D's official system, and how you can put Shadowdark's magic system perfectly into Dungeons & Dragons.